Ladies and gents, welcome back to another Engineers podcast. Today I'm joined by a couple of the folks at Sling Money. Sling are doing some pretty awesome stuff, and it's one that I'm really excited to have the guys on. Sling are essentially an app that's making international payments better, faster, and cheaper. And today I'm joined by Simon and James, who are going to give us a little bit of an intro into their backgrounds, their roles in building Sling from an engineering and design perspective. Simon, great to have you on board.
Hey, Elliot. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, pleasure. Simon, give us a bit of an intro into you and your background.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'm Simon. I'm a co-founder and designer here at Sling. Before Sling, most recently, I was at Spotify, where I was working on the core app. And then, probably more interestingly, just before that, I was at Monzo, which is where we got into the fintech side of things, and also where I met James.
Hey, I'm James. I'm a back-end engineer at Sling, and I've been here for 2 years. I was on the founding team. And before that, I was at Monzo for 5 years, where I worked on kind of product side things, growth, and some lending bits as well.
Love it. Bit of a Monzo money theme. It would be really good, Simon, to get a bit of insight into Sling, the mission, and the problems that you're trying to solve.
Absolutely. So the mission of Sling, I think, is pretty simple. We want to be the best, the easiest way to send money from A to B. It shouldn't matter what bank account you use, what currency you're using, where you are in the world. It should just be incredibly simple for me to send you money. I think this is pretty commonplace in so many digital applications now. I can send text messages, videos, emails, even in online games, I can send digital money around the world way easier than I can send actual money. And Sling's mission is to make it that easy. Sending money should be as easy as sending a text message.
I totally agree. I think you look at where the world shifted in the last 5 years, money transfer apps they've built, and we are going to talk about some of the engineering and the design today, but I think the mesh of the two across some of the businesses that we've got in the space, and you guys are a really, really exciting prospect, hence why I reached out to you. It's come on leaps and bounds, absolute leaps and bounds. So we're going to get into that. It'd be really good to get a gauge from your side, Simon. Previously, if people wanted to leverage crypto to transfer their money internationally, talk to us a little bit about the process that people would have to go through in order to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't think we actually have even mentioned that yet. The technology that we're building on in order to make this possible is the blockchain. People are already using the blockchain to send money around the world, and as you mentioned, the sort of process for doing this now is pretty laborious. It's pretty cumbersome. We were speaking with a person the other day who uses the blockchain to send money back and forth from Nigeria, and the way he does it is he goes to a peer-to-peer crypto exchange. So it's not buying it directly even from the company. He's not even exchanging it directly with the company. He's exchanging it with other people. So it's like this bidding war where he's buying digital dollars from other people in Nigeria. So he goes onto that product and buys the digital dollars from another human being and gets charged a fee to do it. He then transfers it to a product like Coinbase or another crypto wallet and gets charged a little bit of a fee probably for doing that as well. He'll then convince the person he's trying to send the money to, wherever they may be, to download some sort of application that would allow them to receive the money. They have to go through all the fun user experience of doing that. He's then able to send the money, and that process I think is probably pretty good. It's instant and it's very, very cheap. And then that person has to try and find a way to withdraw that money, which again varies depending on the country you're in, and also comes with a little bit of a cost. So we're speaking to this person, and this process, which just took me 30, 35, 40 seconds to explain, this is still the best way for that person to move money from where they are to the UK, even with all that complexity. And I think what's really, really interesting is when you see people going through a lot of effort to do a thing, it means that there is a need for that thing, because they're willing to put the time and effort into to do that, even though it costs them a decent amount of money and is quite painful. And when you see that sort of type of opportunity, you see people are willing to go through this pain just to solve a problem. I think that's the type of opportunity that you can jump on and be like, oh, we can actually make this experience better. We can build something like Sling to try and make that money movement a lot easier, cheaper, and faster for them.
I think for me, persuading the other person to also learn how to do this is kind of the hardest bit. So often what we'll see is there'll be one person who's, let's say, in the UK, and they want to send money to Brazil, and they know how to do stable coins, and they've like put the time in to learn how to do that. And their parents that they want to send money to don't know how to do that. And so, one of the other things we're really trying to do in Sling is make the user experience so easy to use that you can send an App Store download link to your parents and they'll be able to use it.
Love that. I guess one key question that I want to try and understand for the audience: why blockchain technology?
Yeah, sure. I guess it's the best tool for the job that exists right now. So Sling isn't a crypto company, really. Like, we're not trying to do anything that you can't do on traditional financial rails. It's just that sending money on the blockchain takes 2 seconds and it costs like a tiny fraction of a dollar cent. And if you compare that to any other payment rail, like, Swift or, I don't know, faster payments or whatever, all of the traditional rails are slower and more expensive.
Got you. You've taken, as Simon said so eloquently, a really inefficient, convoluted process to send money to people internationally. You've made that really simple. James, can you talk us through a little bit about the process as to how you've really simplified that through good engineering?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like design is a very big part of this as well. I think on the engineering side, one of the key insights of Sling was by using like a US dollar stable coin in the middle, we, I guess, decompose the problem of international money movement. So what Sling is every customer has a self-custodial Solana wallet in which they hold a US dollar stablecoin. And we build we call them kind of ramps. So a payment method that allows a user to deposit or withdraw a fiat currency and get a US dollar stable in return. So the problem of sending money internationally becomes, we need to build, a way for someone in the UK to to essentially buy a US dollar stable with pounds. They can then send that to anyone on the network just using like a Solana transfer of the US dollar stable. And then on the other side, we need to build the off ramp. So, if you're sending to someone in America, they can withdraw that money to dollars. But you kind of have this hub and spoke model for international transfers where for all currency pairs, you just need to build the on and off ramp in those two countries. And so if we add on and off ramps in Colombia, let's say, people in Colombia can send money to everyone in the entire existing Sling network. Whereas on traditional rails, you kind of have this like pairwise thing where you might be able to use this payment rail to send money from someone in the UK to someone in the UK, but you need to use this other one to send UK to Europe and a completely different one to send UK to America. So like the blockchain has massively simplified the thing we are trying to build, or the thing we need to build.
Got you. I love that concept of ramps. I think for someone like me outside the business, I can really understand how you've built that, how to be able to leverage that international transfer. So I'm keen to get into UX playing a real big part here, because UX does play a big part, like James has said. And in order to create a really good customer experience, even sending a link to a friend or a parent who are in Brazil in order to sign up to allow this transfer to happen. Talk to us about the importance of design at Sling, and then talk to us about the importance of design and engineering working together.
Absolutely. I think the approach we take at Sling to this is we're not an engineering-led company. We're not a design-led company. We're not a compliance-led company. We're a user-led company. So everything we do from a regulatory standpoint, from a development standpoint, from a design standpoint, from a product standpoint, is all with the end goal of building the best possible product for our users. And we do this, when hiring. We do this when having ideation discussions. It's not about like, what's the engineering solution to this or what's the design solution to this. We all approach it together with the end goal of what's the best product for the user. And that means that we not always necessarily avoid, but the discussions around how do we build this from a back-end perspective? How do we, what compliance considerations do we need when building like an onboarding flow, for example? We're all pointing the same direction. We're all pointing towards, what is the best end user experience for this. We've obviously got a lot of experience in building these type of flows from everyone at the company has worked at a range of companies before, building sign-up flows and sending flows and stuff like that. So taking the experience from those in the past is obviously a huge success. What I think is particularly tricky about Sling is we interface with a range of payments products all over the world. For example, with Sling, you can send money to anybody in 50 countries. That includes Kenya, that includes France, that includes Brazil. And when I mean that we interface with these payments products in Brazil, you can withdraw money to something called Pix, which is a very popular payment system out there. In Kenya, you can withdraw money to something called M-Pesa, which is how they do their P2P payments over there. So when we're building an experience which has to interface with payments products that I've never personally used, I've never used M-Pesa because I don't have an M-Pesa account. That's where I think some of the problems come, and that's where we really lean into stuff like user research. We interface very closely with our partners to get user experience best practices in order to try and build this product that feels natural and feels native in every country.
I love that. James, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think the process of developing Sling is really this kind of iterative journey of trying to be empathetic about like how our users will think and what kind of, I guess, level of like knowledge and background they'll bring to this product. We've really designed Sling to be a product that anyone can pick up. It's not a super user product. It's not particularly technical. And, I guess one of the difficult things there is that we are super users. Like, we are all people who've worked in finance for, we currently work in finance. And so I think our work is to just try and like be kind to our users, not make things too complicated, but then also to listen to them, right? To give the product to them, do user research sessions, find out the things that are difficult, and iterate on them. One like good example of this is because the app is so international, we have like a really wide range of users. We wanted to have the smallest amount of text, and we still want to have the smallest amount of text in the app as possible. And we were designing the flows for adding and withdrawing money. And Simon went through, I don't know how many, like kind of 10 maybe iterations of designing icons that, people would show people that they can add and withdraw money by tapping on these. And they were like beautiful. And, we really tried hard on them and we just couldn't get it working. And we would give the app to people and they would, we would watch them sign up and they would kind of just tap around and they would, we asked them like, how, if you wanted to add money, how would you do it? And they would get stuck. And so in the end, we've just got like English text saying add and withdraw money, which like isn't our like pure vision, but I think through, I don't know, just experience, it's turned out to be what we needed.
What do you think are the biggest challenges with being a user-led company? I love that example there, but it'd be good to understand from both your perspectives, what are the biggest challenges being user-led? Because I really like something you said, Simon. It's not about, we're not a product challenges business, we're not an engineering challenges business, not even a UX challenge business, but it's all about being user-led. So be great to understand those challenges.
I think there's a couple of things. The first one would be, as James sort of hinted, Sling, the available market for Sling at this current point, which hopefully will also increase, is like 1 billion people. And it's 1 billion people across 7 continents or 6 continents, I think, right now. And therefore, how each individual interfaces with money changes dramatically. So not only does their understanding of their own products, which are unique to their side of the market, differ. Like how people interface with money is incredibly different. How people feel about money, people's concerns about security and stuff vary depending on where you are. So being user-led and being empathetic to users often means you're pulled in a huge amount of different directions. You'll speak to one person and they'll say, I want it like this. And they'll speak to another person and say, I want it like that. And you, in some ways, can't build for absolutely everybody. It's completely impossible. The solution I think we're going for at the moment is to just try and make things as brutally simplistic as possible. It is pure utility. It is as minimum amount of inputs, of screens, of flows as possible. It is just the baseline of what we need to send money from A to B. And we can build upon that and do bill splits and shared tabs and all these other fancy things that people ask for. But if you build this like hyper simplistic app at the very base, hopefully, and this may end up not being true, you can serve multiple markets or the majority of markets with that incredibly simplistic concept. The other side that is challenging of being completely user focused is sometimes I think you have to make decisions which ultimately are not the best thing that you can possibly conceive for the user at that exact point. So we're a startup. We're a very small startup. We cannot build absolutely everything. We cannot build the perfect product first time. One, because I think we don't know what the perfect product is. And two, because that would probably take an incredibly long time, take a lot of engineering hours, take a lot of design hours. So we have to still ship things. We have to still do MVPs. We still have to move fast. And quite often that comes at a trade-off, trying to prove out product market fit, trying to prove out the underlying concepts of your product before you then hopefully iterate and improve and hopefully get to the end point that is the best user experience. You also have to make business decisions and you have to make partnership decisions as well. So there's multiple aspects of this, but even with all of those things, we're still doing it with the end goal being it's the best product for users. And it might be that we're doing it because this decision makes it the best product for 1 billion users rather than the one user that we're focusing on at that time.
Yeah. You've both actually referenced this a couple of times now. We've spoken about iterations and we've spoken about the evolution of Sling now, and let's just say final product. Be great to get an understanding of what some of those iterations have actually looked like, and how you've evolved as a product to get to where you are today?
I think there's been a couple. I mean, I say there's been a couple. there's been a lot. Some of the core ones that I think really stand out, and one of actually the most recent thing is, I think products have this tendency to trend towards being bloated and complex. As you take on more user feedback, as you add in more functionality, you can often find yourself with this this product that you didn't start off trying to make. It's just like little bits have come in along as you've been building it or as you've been shipping and iterating, and you end up with a product that you're like, that wasn't the end goal. We didn't want this to be that complicated. And this happened quite recently with a feature that we call Sling Links. Sling Links allow you to send money to anybody. They don't need to have the app in order to receive money. One problem with a lot of payments products is, if I want to send you money but you don't have the same app as me, then we're stuck and we revert back to traditional bank transfers, which are slow and cost a lot of money. So we have this thing called Sling Links, which allows you to send money to anybody. And we created this like very long flow, which we kept on adding to, where the user would enter their name and go to the next page, and enter their bank details and go to the next page, and enter their address, and then be able to sign in and save all their details. And we ended up taking this to, each iteration we would take it to more and more users, and we ended up getting feedback of people being like, well, I don't know how long this is going to take me to get my money. I don't know about what's the next stage, that I'm going to have to input even more information. And in fact, it's just too much effort for me to do this. This thing that we set out to be really simple and really easy was now just this thing that was actually not even as good as the thing we set out to try and replace, not even as good as sort of sending a bank transfer. So we had this process of reduction where we analyzed the full flow. We removed any sort of superfluous additive features or inputs that no longer really needed to be there. And we simplified it all down into a singular page, which meant the users could see the one page. They knew everything they had to do in order to get there. Their sort of couple of €100, they could input it, press one button, and they'd have the money. So it's important to just sort of like remember the core thing that you're trying to achieve in the first place, continually analyze it over time, because products will naturally trend towards being complex, and then don't be afraid to tear everything apart. There's no point sitting around with a product that, we put a load of time and effort into this, but it's bad, but because we put loads of time and effort into it, it's going to stay bad. That doesn't really make any sense. Be willing to, be like, cool, we put a bunch of time developing this, but it's not where we want to be, so we're going to tear it apart, and we're going to make sure that it is the product that it deserves to be.
I think Sling Links are a product. I mean, Simon kind of briefly touched on this, but the way they work is it's a kind of throwaway crypto wallet that you top up and then send in a URL to someone, and then that person can use our off ramp to withdraw the money. And crucially, they don't need to have Sling. But the thing that makes it really difficult from a UX point of view is that person's kind of mental space when they receive that has like no context about these things at all. So it's not like they've, gone to the App Store, they've like read the little description, they know what they're getting into, and they download it. It's literally like a WhatsApp message with a URL in. And so you really need to be careful with those users and, do all the things to make them feel safe typing their bank details into this like website they've just received.
Yeah, love that. I love the iteration. I love the mindset of keeping things super simplistic. I think adding more to an app, and I can feel this now as a user, not having used Sling, but having used different products in the market, I can totally relate to what you're referring to. And I can almost hear myself in my mind saying these things out loud, that no doubt some of your users would say. But I think good for you, going back to your roots, going back to the DNA of why you wanted to set up Sling, to make this really easy, simple, and having that idea of building something that's simplistic is great. Good for you guys.
Yeah, it's hard work though. Especially when you're like when you're trying to grow and you think like, oh, like maybe we could just add this and that'll get a group of users, or we can add this other thing. And then you need a way to like market that to users in the app, and you can end up with this sort of confusing looking thing.
I think what I find fascinating about Sling is the potential reach of 1 billion people and how you're absorbing that feedback. It would be really good to get a gauge on how you're able to absorb feedback from people and what that actually looks like, and like explaining that process.
Yeah, I think Sling has a goal which we may or may not hit, which we'd love to build a company that's no bigger than 50 people. I don't know whether we're going to be able to achieve that, but we always have that in the back of our minds. And James can probably speak a little bit more on this in a second about how we make engineering decisions with that as an underlying concept. But we want to be a small company. Smaller companies not only move faster, they're also cheaper to run, and we can pass those savings on to our users. And then last but not least, I personally find them more fun. I love working on this product with my really close friends. We sat side by side, and you sort of lose some of that as you start to get into the hundreds and thousands of people. So one thing we said very early on is we want to stay small. And in order to stay small, you have to be willing to say no to really good ideas. And that is maybe one of the hardest parts about building Sling, is having these amazing opportunities, these amazing ideas, stuff that we could relatively easily do. And as James mentioned earlier, maybe bring in more users, and still saying no to them so that we can stay true to that core goal is really, really hard. But is necessary in order to achieve the things that we're trying to achieve. If we say yes to every decision, we'll have to hire more people, and then you end up with like a huge office with 1,000 staff, and your overheads are so big that half your transfer fees are just to keep the office running. And then your users are suffering at the end of the day. And this probably even goes a little bit back to us saying that we're a user-led company. Every person we hire, we have to pay, and then we need a desk space, and like each one of those decisions ultimately ends up in our app costing more, and that's something we want to try and avoid. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from James about sort of some of the engineering decisions that we make with that in mind when we want to try and stay as a team as small as possible.
Yeah. So to keep things like, I don't know, to kind of like, I mean, your question's about like making engineering decisions to help keep the team small. And I think the thing we do here is just try to keep the platform as simple as possible. There's, I think, like all the engineers will know, there's this like website called boring.technology that encourages people to use boring technology. And we are kind of fans of that. So we just have like a super simple tech stack. We're not trying to do anything fancy. Monzo was a fancy technology company, and I think it did it really well, but it had a dedicated platform team who were exceptional, like really, really strong engineers. And they, kept that machine working. We do not have a platform team. We don't really want to have a platform team. And so we've chosen, you know, the kind of simplest, most bare bones tech stack we could think of that we could hire for as well. And yeah, like all the time, like the thing I think about is I have this like internal metric. I don't know if it's like a real thing. I call it total system complexity. And every couple of months, I write down like the names of all of the technology things we're using and the information flows. So like, this system pulls data from this other system, and we look at this kind of drawing and work out. We want to limit the growth of that total system complexity drawing.
I love that. I think, especially on engineering, sometimes let's just call it, the industry is a little bit split. Some people go one way and introduce every tool, technology, I love the simplistic route. And I think this does help me understand the DNA of the business more. Simplistic, lean, that's how you want to run the business. That translates to how you can impact a user positively, going back to your roots and what you're saying is the most important thing. So I love that being the nucleus of the business. I would love to get a gauge from you guys for what you can tell us at this stage, what the next 6 to 12 months looks like for Sling. I'm sure some secrets in there, but for what you don't want to be a secret, please do share with us.
So, so I think this will be public by the time this airs. But I've been working on this thing called OpenSling with, Simon and like a couple of mobile engineers. This is an interesting feature. I think it's not a feature we would have done when we were starting Sling. And again, this is maybe an example of like listening to user feedback. So OpenSling lets you send US dollar stables as stable coins to and from Sling. So this is really like a crypto feature. It's people need to have an existing crypto wallet. They need to already hold a US dollar stable in order to use this. And, like 2 years ago when we were starting out, we had a lot of, back and forth kind of questions about like how crypto-y do we want Sling to be? And really through that, we were just like, we don't want it to be crypto-y at all. Like we think, it has these negative connotations for people, it's kind of a bit scammy, things like that. And so we like reduced, I guess we tried to hide the amount of like crypto stuff in the app. We weren't particularly successful at that. And so even before OpenSling, if you look at it, there are things that we considered hiding, like the fact that you have like a US dollar balance. We show your balance in your kind of home currency, but there is this like US dollar currency underneath that. We were considering hiding that, and it turned out the app just doesn't really make sense if you hide those things. So there are places where it shows through. We let you export your private keys, so there's like a screen in the app for doing that. And OpenSling, I guess, is just like a feature for people who already use stablecoins. This kind of came out of the realization that stablecoins are being used in certain countries. Mike, our CEO, talks about this as stablecoins having product market fit in certain countries. And those countries are countries that it can be hard to support from a compliance point of view. So like Argentina, loads of people use stablecoins in Argentina, and we at the moment don't have payment rails in Argentina. So we kind of realized if we we're built on Solana, loads of other people are using Solana. If we just let those two things integrate, then we can support Argentina for a large number of people without needing to wait months for us to work out how to do Rails there. So that's coming
Love
up.
that. Up the OpenSling.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to like the thing we spoke about earlier, which is you asked like, how are people doing this already? And I spoke about people buying P2P over here and sending it to this, and this. We can at least, for some set of countries, make that middle bit really, really easy. They can use the Sling interface. They can find their friends on global search. They can use our really easy P2P product. So it's taking that large group of users that are already doing this, but in a bad way, and at least making their lives a little bit easier for this middle bit.
Yeah, we released this quietly last week, and we've seen a ton of usage so far. I think a really interesting use case that we hadn't really thought of was also for crypto people. It's like hard to convert your US dollar stables into fiat currency, and I think Sling might be one of the easiest ways to do that, kind of accidentally.
One other thing just on this is, I think in opening Sling up a little bit and allowing it to be interoperable and allowing it to connect to the existing blockchain ecosystem, it's way more true to the core underlying technology, which is like the whole point of blockchain is that it's decentralized, it's open, everyone has access to it. And by opening up to that, I think we're being way more true to what it's trying to achieve. And it allows for a lot more, I think, exciting opportunities in the future. What we don't want to do is create the same enclosed ecosystem that exists today, but on chain. Like we don't want to end up in the exact same space, but someone's using Solana, someone's using Ethereum, like, or none of this stuff connects, and it's just equally bad as it is today, but it's on chain. Like that provides no value. So by opening up Sling, we can create this much more open ecosystem, interconnected ecosystem, and hopefully that allows a lot more of these sort of products to flourish. I think in the UK, they created like open banking and cash switching to try and open up the ecosystem and have this technology connect to each other. And I think on-chain sort of has all that stuff by default, and by not leaning into it, we would miss a very large opportunity.
Love that. Personally, I'm going to be keeping tabs on you guys. You've got an incredible team. I love the ideas behind the business. I love what you're trying to build. So Artifeks, Engineers will be keeping a close eye on what you guys and girls are doing. I want to say a massive thanks from us here at Engineers. Thanks for coming to join us. Share a little bit more about what you're building and how you're building it, the ethos of being very user-led. And I think that translates across the business, how you're building things, how you're giving back to your users, but ultimately, I think how you're building the business as well. I think that really transcends from some of your DNA. So I want to say a massive thanks, Simon, James, everyone that's been involved in this process has been incredible, and wish you guys, of course, very best of luck. Any parting messages you guys want to give?
Yeah, Sling's currently in closed beta, so if you try and download Sling, you'll get hit with a waitlist. We've made you a code Engineers. If you type in that code, it should get you past the waitlist for a good number of people. Please give it a try. Give us some feedback. We have a Slack community. Everyone's welcome to join. You'll see links to join it throughout the flow. And yeah, basically give us your feedback on how you think the app is, where you think we can improve it. And it's the only way we're gonna get better. So yeah, give it a go. Thank you very much also for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Pressure's on now. for how many people are going to be on the wait list via us. Pressure's on, don't worry. We will drive that for sure. Both really enjoyed it. Thanks so much. And for everyone listening, go and check out the Sling guys. Obviously get yourselves on a wait list, and likes, shares, subscribes, everything that contributes to this little mini Engineers ecosystem is massively appreciated. So please go do that, and keep tabs on the Sling guys and girls.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Engineers is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Engineers.io. It's no_. We've also got a website, which is engineers.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.